In the opulent halls of the German imperial palace, where power and paranoia danced hand in hand, there lived a princess who would witness the collapse of an empire and the end of an age. Princess Victoria Louise of Prussia, born into unimaginable privilege as the only daughter of the infamous Kaiser Wilhelm II, would become both the darling of European royalty and a witness to its spectacular destruction. Her story is one of forbidden love, political machinations, and the dark shadows that lurked beneath the glittering surface of imperial Germany. This is the tale of a woman who attended the last great gathering of European monarchs before they tore each other apart in the Great War. On September 13, 1892, at the Marble Palace in Potsdam, Empress Augusta Victoria finally gave birth to what she had longed for, a daughter. After 6 sons, the arrival of Victoria Louise was celebrated with particular fervour. The Empress wrote in her diary, "After 6 sons, God has given us our 7th child, a small but very strong little daughter. Named after her paternal great-grandmother, Queen Victoria, and great-great-grandmother, Louise of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, the princess was immediately nicknamed Sissy by her family. But it was her relationship with her father that would define her childhood and set her apart from her brothers. Kaiser Wilhelm II, a man notorious for his volatile temperament and militaristic obsessions, showed a tenderness toward his only daughter that shocked the court. Unlike his harsh treatment of his sons, the Kaiser allowed Victoria Louise freedoms that would have been unthinkable for his male heirs. Her eldest brother, Crown Prince Wilhelm, later wrote that she was the only one of us who succeeded in her childhood in gaining a snug place in their father's heart. This favouritism came at a price. Victoria Louise was described as intelligent and graceful, but she had also inherited her father's imperious and willful nature. Her English governess, Anne Topham, observed in 1902 that the 9-year-old princess was friendly and energetic, but constantly quarrelling with her brother, Prince Joachim. The governess noted that the warlike emperor unbends to a considerable extent when in the bosom of his family, and was the dominating force of his daughter's life. While Victoria Louise basked in her father's affection, the imperial family harboured disturbing secrets that would only emerge years later. Her paternal grandmother, Empress Victoria, known as Vicky, had subjected her father Wilhelm II to horrifying treatments as a child, including electroshock therapy and barbaric animal baths, where the future Kaiser was forced to immerse his withered arm in tubs of animal entrails. The family was plagued by genetic disorders and mental instability. Victoria Louise's Aunt Charlotte was believed to suffer from porphyria, the hereditary illness that ran through the British monarchy. Some historians suggest that Empress Victoria herself may have suffered from a mild form of this condition, which could explain her strange headaches, skin rashes, and dependence on morphine. Victoria Louise's own mother, Empress Augusta Victoria, was described as cold and distant, creating a household where emotional warmth was scarce, except for the Kaiser's doting attention to his daughter. This dysfunction would have lasting impacts on the imperial children, several of whom would later align themselves with the Nazi Party. In 1910, at the age of 18, Victoria Louise's life took a dramatic turn when she met Prince Ernest Augustus of Hanover during a visit to her parents' court. Their attraction was immediate and genuine, but their desire to marry threatened to reignite one of Germany's most bitter dynastic feuds. The houses of Hohenzollern and Hanover had been enemies since 1866, when Bismarck had orchestrated the annexation of the Kingdom of Hanover. The Hanoverian royal family had been stripped of their throne through what many considered Prussian treachery and fraud. Ernest Augustus's grandfather, King George V of Hanover, had been blind and fighting desperately to maintain his kingdom's neutrality when Prussian forces invaded, despite promises of armistice. For nearly 50 years, the Guelph Party in the Prussian legislature had been a persistent thorn in the government's side, working to restore Hanoverian independence through constitutional means. The thought of the Kaiser's beloved daughter marrying into this enemy house sent shockwaves through the political establishment. Despite the political obstacles, love would find a way. In February 1913, negotiations reached a breakthrough when Ernest Augustus agreed to swear allegiance to the German Empire and renounce his claims to the Hanoverian throne. In exchange, he would receive the Duchy of Brunswick, a fragment of his family's former territories. On May 24, 1913, Princess Victoria Louise and Prince Ernest Augustus were married in Berlin in what would become known as the last great gathering of European royalty. The wedding was a spectacular affair that brought together the crowned heads of Europe in a display of magnificence that would never be seen again. King George V and Queen Mary of the United Kingdom attended, as did Tsar Nicholas II of Russia. The bride wore the Brunswick tiara, and the ceremony was held with all the pomp and ceremony befitting an imperial princess. What none of the glittering attendees realized was that they were witnessing the swan song of their world. The wedding successfully ended the decades-long feud between the houses of Hohenzollern and Hanover, but it came at a terrible historical moment. Just 14 months later, Europe would be engulfed in the Great War that would destroy most of the monarchies represented at the celebration. Victoria Louise's early married life was marked by happiness and the birth of her children. She gave birth to her first son, Prince Ernest Augustus, in 1914, followed by Princess Frederica in 1917, Prince George William in 1915, Princess Sophie in 1914, Prince Christian in 1919, and Prince Welf Henry in 1921-1923. But the Great War changed everything. Victoria Louise fell ill with Spanish flu as revolutions swept through Germany in 1918. Her father, Kaiser Wilhelm II, was forced to abdicate and flee to exile in the Netherlands, ending over 300 years of Hohenzollern rule. The German Empire collapsed, taking with it Victoria Louise's own Duchy of Brunswick. The family was forced to flee their palace as revolutionary forces took control. They were briefly arrested in Karlsruhe before escaping to Bavaria and then Austria. For a princess who had known only privilege and power, this sudden fall from grace was devastating. The post-war years brought personal tragedies that would haunt Victoria Louise for the rest of her life. In 1920, she was finally allowed to visit her parents in their Dutch exile, but her mother, Empress Augusta Victoria, was gravely ill. As her mother lay dying, the family received news that Victoria Louise's brother, Prince Joachim, had committed suicide. The Empress died on April 11, 1921, but Victoria Louise was not present for her mother's final moments. The loss of both her mother and brother in such quick succession devastated Victoria Louise. The suicide of Prince Joachim was particularly shocking, as it represented the psychological toll that the fall of the empire had taken on the imperial family. The 1930s brought new darkness as Adolf Hitler rose to power in Germany. Several of Victoria Louise's brothers became early supporters of the Nazi Party, including former Crown Prince Wilhelm and Prince August Wilhelm. Prince August Wilhelm even became Hitler's campaign aide, actively rallying support and raising funds for the Nazi cause. Victoria Louise's husband, Ernest Augustus, made donations to the Nazi Party, hoping they might help restore the monarchy. Most disturbingly, he quietly amassed wealth by taking advantage of the Aryanization campaign, acquiring several companies that originally belonged to Jewish owners. He converted one of these into an arms company that specialized in producing jet engines for the Luftwaffe. However, Victoria Louise herself maintained some distance from the Nazi regime. When Hitler suggested that she and her husband marry their daughter Frederica to King Edward VIII of the United Kingdom to strengthen ties between Germany and Britain, Victoria Louise and Ernest Augustus ultimately refused. World War II brought fresh horrors to Victoria Louise's family. Her eldest nephew, Prince Wilhelm, was killed during the German invasion of France in 1940. Her own sons served in the German military, with her eldest son, Ernest Augustus IV, being wounded and discharged. In 1941, Victoria Louise travelled to the Netherlands to be with her father, Kaiser Wilhelm II, as he lay, dying. She was at his bedside when he died on June 4, 1941, of a pulmonary embolism, bringing to an end the life of one of history's most controversial rulers. As the war neared its end, Victoria Louise and her family were living at Blankenberg Castle when it was about to be handed over to the Red Army. In a dramatic escape facilitated by King George VI of Britain, the family was able to move their belongings to Marienburg Castle in the British Isles occupation zone using British Army trucks. After the war, Victoria Louise spent her remaining years attending public events in Lower Saxony, supporting palace restoration projects, and engaging in philanthropic work. Her husband, Ernest Augustus, died at Marienburg on January 30th, 1953, leaving her a widow at the age of 60. A rivalry developed between Victoria Louise and her eldest son over her popularity and public appearances. When he made Marienburg a museum in 1954, she moved back to Brunswick, where a circle of wealthy supporters called the Braunschweiger Freundeskreis provided her with a house. In 1965, she published her autobiography, Life as Daughter of the Emperor, though it is believed that her publisher served as ghostwriter. The memoir was an attempt to humanize her father, Kaiser Wilhelm II, and present a more sympathetic view of the German imperial family. Princess Victoria Louise of Prussia died in Hanover on December 11, 1980, at the age of 88. She was the last surviving child of Kaiser Wilhelm II, having outlived all her brothers by over 22 years. Her death marked the end of an era, as she was one of the last direct links to the world of European imperial splendor that had vanished in the flames of 2 world wars. She was buried beside her husband in front of the Royal Mausoleum in the Bergarten at Herrenhausen Gardens in Hanover. Through her daughter Queen Frederica of Greece, Victoria Louise's bloodline continues to flow through European royalty, including the current Spanish royal family. Princess Victoria Louise's life spanned nearly 9 decades of European history, from the height of imperial power to the atomic age. She witnessed the last great gathering of European monarchs, the collapse of empires, 2 world wars, and the rise and fall of Nazi Germany. Her story reveals the dark underbelly of royal privilege, the genetic disorders, family dysfunction, political machinations, and moral compromises that lurked beneath the glittering surface of imperial court life. She was a woman who experienced both the ultimate heights of aristocratic privilege and the devastating lows of exile and loss. Most tellingly, her family's connections to the Nazi regime demonstrate how easily the old aristocracy could be seduced by promises of restored power, even when it meant collaboration with evil. The princess who had once danced at the last imperial ball would live to see her world not just transformed, but utterly destroyed by the forces of history. Victoria Louise of Prussia remains a haunting figure, the beloved daughter of a Kaiser, witness to the end of an age, and a reminder that even the most privileged lives cannot escape the dark currents of history that sweep away empires and dreams alike.